I think Biden's getting replaced. To me, that's the only explanation for why they're allowing, and I'm saying they as in the ruling class, in donor class, is allowing coverage of the question of Biden being replaced. I don't at all think this guy, Dean Phillips, is going out on his own, some rogue guy going out on different networks talking about how we need more people in the primaries. He's part of a coordinated attempt to message a certain thing. Maybe they're getting ready to pivot to Gavin Newsom. Everybody knows Gavin Newsom is running a parallel campaign right now. Gavin Newsom is going around and he's running a parallel campaign right now. So Gavin Newsom and the governor of Michigan, Whitmer, could be a perfect 1-2 punch, a perfect ticket for the Democratic Party to pivot to away from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So we got maybe 8 minutes left. We need to try to get out of here. So I'm going to play it and then get your quick reaction, and then we'll get out of here, everybody. So let's play it, and then I'll play about 2 minutes, and then I'll get your reaction.
And I'm concerned about the Democratic establishment working much too hard to prevent any new entrants, to prevent competition, instead pursuing a coronation. And frankly, we did something similar in 2008. And thank goodness, a first-term senator from the state of Illinois raised his hand, stood up, met the moment, and we had Barack Obama become United States president. I just think that we should be mindful of history, recognize the consequences of not having a backup plan, Jake, because one of the core elements of successful leadership is a succession plan, being sure that there's somebody able, ready to go. And I'd like to see the president actually invite people to the primary stage. And again, not me. You know, I'm a third-term congressman from Minnesota. I think I'm able and prepared for the job, but I'm a third-term congressman. I have 60,000 Twitter followers and $250,000 in my campaign account. There are people ready to go, governors. And
so the credentials he just gave are the same credentials, I would say, why this is not some rogue guy. The guy with his credentials, why is CNN even having him on then? Why did Make the Press have him on? The guy has 65,000 followers by his own admission and $250,000 in his campaign fund. He's a nobody in their eyes. So why is he being allowed to go on these networks to say these things? Keep that in mind. You're going to answer that question once we finish this, another minute of this clip.
In particular, moderate governors from the heartland that I think, I'll tell you what, Jake, I've been someone who always reaches out to people before I talk about them. And sadly, some have asked that I not even reference their names right now, which is a pretty good indicator of how this establishment blocks, prevents, and silences people. And I'm here to speak. I think I'm the only one. I think I'm the only member of the Congress, a Democrat, out of 262 people, giving voice to the majority of Democratic voters in the country, and those 80% of independents who are saying the exact same thing. That's my job. And that's what I'm going to continue to do.
Doing the math, and I'm doing this on the fly, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I can only think of 2 Democratic governors from the heartland who are women. One of whom is from Kansas and one of whom is from Michigan. Are you suggesting that one of them, specifically, I'm just to take a leap here, Gretchen Whitmer from Michigan, is somebody you would like to see throw her hat into the ring?
I think there are about 5 names. Everybody watching right now probably knows who they are. They're on the bench. They've got organization. They would have institutional support. They have access to the extraordinary amount of money, resources necessary to mount a credible primary campaign.
Who is he talking to? And I can stop here and get your comment. He's not talking to us. He's talking to donors. He's talking to the people they're trying to convince we need to move on from Joe Biden. This is my opinion. Now I want to get your opinion. Let's start with Anthony, then we'll go to Michelle. We'll keep it brief just for the sake of time. But what is your explanation for why they're now saying this is becoming more prevalent, that they're allowing to say this on mainstream or cable news networks, corporate media, in print and on TV? Why are they doing this more often? Do you think Joe Biden will be replaced? And if not, why do you think? What is the other reason you think? Go ahead, Anthony.
Well, I mean, it's my understanding that he would not be allowed as a Democrat representative in Congress to be on CNN without their okay.
Right.
Yeah, you can't just be rogue. If you do that, you know, you lose support of the DNC, and good luck next time running for office, right? Because they're just gonna they don't like that, right? So they tell them who can go on and who can't. I did a thread on this, I don't know, two or 3 weeks ago. I don't believe Joe Biden is going to be the nominee in 2024. I just do not. The man is not well, physically or cognitively. He's just not. In addition to being wildly unpopular and having the lowest approval ratings of any first-term president at this term in his presidency since Jimmy Carter. There's no way he's going to be the nominee. I find it hysterical that nobody's talking about Kamala Harris. It makes me happy because she is a living piece of shit.
Yeah, she's terrible.
I mean, I could just say two things. What she did to incarcerated people in California, kept them in prison after courts ordered her to depopulate the prisons because they were overcrowded because she needed the free labor. All those people who think that Democrats are good on queer issues, they are not. Kamala Harris refused to allow trans women in prison in California to transition or be on hormone therapy. She put them in with men and they got raped. So she's good on nothing, and she abandoned sex abuse survivors who were abused by clergy members. And since I'm a survivor of clergy abuse, that there's a whole bunch of reasons, but I find it hysterical that Kamala Harris is not being.
She's terrible.
So, but they have a problem, and I said this in my thread. What are you going to do now? Because if Biden has to drop out because of health, and I don't think that would be a made-up thing, like literally he's not well, and he's not going to get better. Look at the actuarials. Insurance companies know this. He's just not getting better, and he's older than his 80 years, by far. Look at Bernie. Bernie's a year older than him, and Bernie's like running around and, politics aside. Joe Biden, they have a problem, the Democrats do. Because what are you going to pass over Kamala Harris? If Joe Biden has to step aside, Kamala becomes president. You don't run your party's president. So that is going to be a problem. There are a lot of people who support Kamala Harris and like the fact that she's a woman of color. Now, what are you going to do to them? Those voters believed hook, line, and sinker that the Democrats cared about diversity. Now you're passing over Kamala Harris for a white guy with a nice head of hair. And by God, Gavin Newsom has excellent hair. He looks like if you had to come up with an AI president, that guy, he's a good looking guy, right? But what are you going to pass over Kamala Harris for Gavin Newsom? How is that going to go over? And what? Yeah. And now does he pick a white? See, the Democrats have pigeonholed themselves with identity politics. So I just think they're completely fucked right now. I really do. The only hope they have is that Trump, gets just so dirty and muddled from all of his cases that people hold their nose and vote for whatever Democrat. But I don't think it's going to go well for them. I really don't. And that's, again, why I think Cornel West has a perfect opportunity to show what clowns they are.
That is the point that, I couldn't have said it better myself. I wholeheartedly agree with that, especially that last part. And we'll go to Michelle for final comments on this, and really final comments of the stream before we read super chat. So what are your comments on same sort of thing? Do you think Joe Biden is going to be replaced? If you don't think so, you can further comment on that, and if you do, comment on that. And what say you about why we're hearing this more often in corporate owned media about this idea of the possibility?
I think what I've even experienced myself as when I don't have a lot of time or energy to focus on politics is to realize that there's a long plan that's already in place. There are a lot of backroom discussions that are planning out these things like a freaking strategic chess match. There's a lot of framing and propaganda and support that gets given to keep people like trailing along with them so that they're doing what they want them to do and not necessarily what the rest of the population wants them to do. And you're correct. It's been circulating since, I think, since Biden was elected, that they're not going to run Biden in the second 4 years. But
right.
Biden hasn't completely, I mean, Biden's not well. I'll agree with that. And it's a struggle for me to find the balance point with these super old elected people that have need to just go home and take care of themselves, need to just go home and live out the rest of their life in a comfortable place, while battling with saying that with the institutionalized ableism that does exist, that harms people on a regular, in the process. So it's important that we realize there's deeper conversations, deeper agendas, deeper freaking billionaires that are steering the boat in certain situations, big corporations, big industries that are making these decisions, and they're just letting the parties that rely on their funding stream to move the pieces in the way that's most strategic to get their agenda ahead. We need to see that for the truth that it is. We need to stop just being spoon-fed. This is your candidate. This is our choice. This is who we're endorsing. You're supporting it with your pseudo vote, but yet that vote doesn't represent a lot of people that don't vote because they're so disenfranchised and so disconnected, and they really feel powerless and they're just trying to survive. We need to, while doing all of this, my father is a Republican. He was a Trump supporter. He has since kind of realized some of the wrong in those things. But throughout the pandemic, I dealt with struggles with that belief structure, while also seeing and realizing, as a person from a lower income area in northern Michigan, a very suppressed, not very dynamic funded area, those hardships are felt in a way different from what we experience here in California, from what we experience in other places. When you don't have big industry around you, all you have is kind of to blame the person next to you for needing more than you do and forgetting that because their need is greater. So it's a lot of psychology, a lot of human relations, sociology comes into play too, in kind of figuring all of this out. And we've got to quit being spoon-fed and start realizing that when something doesn't feel right, there's a reason it doesn't feel right. And even if everybody else is saying don't pursue that, reach out to somebody different and say, hey, why did you say this? Or hey, why didn't you say this? And together we can hopefully brainstorm a better tomorrow.